we are all about the basics in this current segment. My name is Dara, and I'm joined by
Shay.
And today we are going to be speaking about grace and mercy, which is a loaded,
very big topic.
do you understand?
Yeah.
Quite wide, but also at the same time, not really. But we'll start off very, very simple. What is grace and what is mercy? So you can give us one definition if you have any.
Okay. Well, you had the definitions, but I'll try.
What does it mean to you?
Mercy for me is sort of the act of like withholding deserved punishment. Right. So it's like when you don't deserve anything, when you've done something terrible, or just simply that's not what like you deserve something far worse. And
Exactly.
Mercy is like, I'll take that away from you. You don't have to go through that.
Deep. Yeah. And grace, a lot of people use this definition of unmerited favor, where you don't deserve it, but favor is endowed on you and you get things that you never previously deserved. So because they are quite similar, they are also used, I would dare to say, interchangeably by some, how can we kind of differentiate them in a way?
Okay, well, I've got here that mercy is sort of like God not giving us what we do deserve.
Okay.
And then grace is God giving us something we don't deserve.
Right.
If that makes it's like very small distinction, but yeah.
That's deep.
But I mean, it's they're really similar. They're really just like sort of two sides of the same coin. So it's very easy to sort of conflate the two, but they are distinct things in the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll read as well from Hebrews 4:16. It says, "Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need." First of all, I read this verse and I was speaking to my dad and I was like, "This is deep." He's like, "It's deep." Yeah, it's deep. I was like, "No, this is you don't understand just how deep this is."
This is the ocean.
Because first of all, it's the throne of grace, which I found really interesting because obviously when Jesus died and he resurrected and he ascended, the act of what Jesus did was grace. It was mercy and grace.
Both,
do you understand what I mean? But also that when we approach the throne of grace, we obtain mercy and we find grace. So grace often follows mercy, which is interesting that they're sometimes put together because we go to the Lord and he freely gives us mercy.
Yeah.
And then we have the opportunity to kind of walk in grace. So my question would kind of be to you, like, do you feel like we can grow in grace?
Yeah, I mean, obviously. I think grace can be in levels.
Okay.
Right? So it can be in like sort of stages of your life. You not only, I mean, obviously you get mercy, which is like almost like the first step almost of like being exempt for the things that you should have been into. But then grace is giving you things that you just don't deserve. And that can be in so many different levels. It can start from very little and then it can just go into like, suddenly I'm here. I have no idea how I got here, but wow.
For real.
Yeah.
So deep. And obviously there's this different levels of grace or dimensions of grace. I don't want to get too much into it, but obviously there's the saving grace where we're speaking about Jesus, dying and resurrecting, and also the kind of enabling grace. So what we can do is delve into parts of the Bible for examples of mercy and examples of grace and kind of the lessons from that. So you can start.
I mean, I think David in the Old Testament is a pretty good example. But there are many different examples, but David is one of the examples of how like both of them, again, they tie in really closely together. So oftentimes if you're getting grace, you've gotten mercy as well. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, I got you.
Right. So like David and Solomon. David got grace to become king. But he received mercy from from doing all sort of the sins that he also committed as well. But before you can get grace, you almost have to have gotten mercy, if that makes sense.
I so get
so it's like God granted him, God sort of exempted him of all the stuff that he would have become. He was a shepherd boy. No one knew, when Samuel came over to like anoint the king, it was like, oh no, this guy must be it. This guy must be it. His own father was like, I think that guy is probably it. But they're like, oh wait, do you have a son somewhere that it should be? He shouldn't have been anywhere near that. But like God just like okay, let's just get you up. Yeah. So.
And I think as well, because obviously the definition that I had, I'll kind of go into grace as well, of unmerited favor. There was obviously Samuel in the Bible, who, by the way, also interesting fact, that he received like grace from God and kind of favor from God before he even knew God, which I found really interesting. I feel like a lot of the time, even as we're going through this life, we don't even realize that before I even had a relationship with God, he showed me so much mercy. He showed me so much grace. So obviously in the Bible, it's talking about how Samuel grew in wisdom and stature and found favor with God and man. Same thing with Jesus in the book of Luke as well. So it's like, you were saying, there's these different dimensions
it can also
of
be
it.
generational, like as you pointed out with Samuel, right? So it's like his mother was the one who put that into him, right? Who led him into that direction, and then God chose him from that. So it's like
so deep. So it's really, really important to kind of walk in both, because one follows the other. You know what I mean? Let me give you another verse. This is from Romans 11:6. I'm dwelling a bit more on grace. I just find it really interesting, but we'll obviously still speak about mercy. They are very, interlinked. It's Romans 11:6, and it says, "And if by grace, then it is no longer of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. And if it is of works, it is no longer grace. Otherwise, work is no longer works." And I found that really interesting, kind of the relationship between works and grace, because there's only so far your work can get you. Do you understand? Because it's unmerited favor. So you can put in this amount of work and God just takes it to a whole different level and a whole different dimension.
There was something that I think Pastor was mentioning. He was saying something about like, let me get what I don't deserve. Let me get what I haven't worked for, because that God can bless someone. God can truly bless someone. He can take someone from something like the lowest of the low and take them. No matter how much work and effort you put in, He can do so much more than that. And that's where we really want to. I mean, that's where I want. Sorry, I don't want to get like what I've worked in, because I know that sometimes that might not be enough. But with God, He's always enough. His grace is sufficient for us, right? So it's like, that's where we want to be.
And obviously we see that even in another example, like for example, Noah just came to me as well. How God had mercy on Noah and of his family. And so when he was like, you know what, I'm going to actually get rid of this whole earth because I'm sick of absolutely everybody, but I'm going to have mercy and compassion on you. Exactly. He remembered Noah. And so he gave them the instructions. And so he worked at it, but he was actually given grace to be able to follow the instructions and to build this ark. So Noah couldn't have come back and be like, you know what, God, you gave me the instructions, but I worked for this. I did. I worked for it. Every single thing that we do, that's why I was speaking about enabling grace. We need the grace of God to, follow us, to help us, to enable us in all that we do. You know what I mean? I think even Saul, you can speak a bit about Saul as well. Yeah, I
was talking about tying that back into what happens when you don't have mercy or you don't have grace. He became demon possessed. That's far. You go to the point where you're calling on witches to come and help you do things. You can't sleep properly because without hearing music. That's far. That's that's so far. And the thing that causes that, and the thing that causes God to take away your grace and your mercies is sin. Really, right? It's departing from God's will and what God has planned for you and putting your hand into somewhere you shouldn't, right? And that could cause other people to suffer as well because of what you did, right? So the Israelites, when there was a time when they were going to go plunder and recover back the gains that had been taken from them. And then this one guy somewhere went and started stealing, or he went against what God has specifically told him not to do. And because of that, everyone else is fine. It's like that. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. When the devil wants to target you, he's going to make you sin. He's not going to go target God. How can he target God? He's going to make you sin so that your own defender will now be like, I can't do this.
And the thing is, I think it's so important because mercy is what redeems us from sin. So it's so interesting how you can sin and that can be taken away from you. But God has explicitly said, if you ask it from me, I will give it to you. That's the thing, because I was saying to you before as well, how I was in a lecture and I heard about... they were talking about, there's mercy and there's justice. And where mercy is, there can't be justice. There's like a whole debate. And I was like, that's so interesting. I don't normally do this, but I was sitting there thinking, God, what a God you are. Because God is able to be merciful and just at the same time. He freely gives us mercy. So it's like, yes, when you sin and when there's iniquity in your heart and all of these things, it can kind of pull you away from what God has in store for you. But you need to run back into it because it's only God's mercy.
David is such a good example of that. Because the whole of Psalms is just be like, I'm sorry, God. Bro, please have mercy.
I said, David, it's enough.
Just have mercy upon about people.
Yeah, no,
It's
so
like,
deep.
even when he was still like, he found favor at the side of God. He was one of the people that God just genuinely blessed and favored and loved.
Yeah, and what you were saying as well about it being generational is so deep, because there's a lot of promises that God kept because of David.
Yeah.
So like even later kings, he was like, you guys, you actually really suck, but because I kept this promise with David and I loved him so much, not because, you know, he never sinned, not because he never did this, but because he was a man after God's own heart. And God was like, I just like you, because no matter what you do, you always come back to me. Like, he just knew the key. Do you know what I mean? To get there. So it genuinely
knew the way
is so,
to just like get
right?
God to be like, okay, I'll still give you that. Okay, it's all right. It's okay. You can come back. Because I mean, David is an interesting man, I think. David is an interesting man. His story is so interesting, from how he came from nothing, and how he found favor and how he found grace with God. But even at his lowest, you could tell that God would still have like, because God knew that he would have run back to him afterwards. God knew that it's like, after everything, whatever he does, he's gonna come back to me. He's gonna mean it sincerely in his heart. He's not just gonna say it. Some people are like, I'll sin and then I'll go ask God for mercy. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Definitely. So it's like, in our own lives, I would say, not how can we benefit, but how can we get the real, I don't know how to describe the question. How can we get the real benefits of mercy and of grace in our lives? If you understand what I'm
I think it's kind of like what you said about Hebrews 4:16, approaching God, right? And approaching the throne of grace and just thanking him for all the stuff that he's already done in the past. I mean, sometimes I'm genuinely like, oh, I can't believe I was born in a Christian home. Like, if we look at this world right now and where I could have been if I wasn't in this environment, that is mercy already. It's like, I can't believe it. Like, thank you so much. So it's like approaching him with that sense of like, thank you so much for what you've already done for me. Please, can I find mercy? Can I find grace in your sight? And then walking in that and trusting that he will guide you. But
and as you know, I was gonna, build on that point as well, of just acknowledging, God's mercy in your life and God's grace. I think one thing God really loves is reflection. I think it's also a reason why he really liked David, because he was always reflecting on, even though these people are coming after me, even though this, even though that, God, you were always there for me. And Lamentations is also a really good book as well. There's a bit that's like, let me actually get it, so I'm not paraphrasing and people are gonna, you can read it.
Is it 3:22? Yeah. Through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness.
Exactly. So like, getting the real benefits and the real juice from mercy and from grace is acknowledging that it's there for you. Like, it's come boldly. And that's another thing of like, God has said, come boldly to the throne, not come, oh God, please, can I just have, no, come boldly to the throne and you'll receive those things. I think it's so deep to actually reflect on what God has done for you. Acknowledge that I would not be where I am without him, because that is his mercy and that is also his grace.
And he's truly a faithful God, right? So it's like, what he's offering is so much. We barely even scratch the tip of the iceberg of what is actually available through grace. But he's offering all of that.
I have another verse. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
And just a simple, it's okay. And just a simple, like, please, just come to me when you need help. Just repent from your sins and just turn me.
So
he's
simple.
not asking for like much at all in comparison. It's ridiculous.
It's so deep. And what I was just thinking of as well, really quickly, was 2 Corinthians 9:8, and it says, and God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you, always having all sufficiency in all things, may have an abundance for every good work. So grace is for you to have for every good work, not for, when I just come to church, may the grace of the Lord. No, when I go to school, may the grace of the Lord help me. When I go into this exam, may the grace of the Lord help me, because it's only the grace of the Lord. So it's so important, because what you were saying is God has so much for us. We can, like, he does exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or even
eyes have not seen,
even like comprehend. Do you understand? So the fact that God is able to make all grace, how much is all grace?
I have no idea.
But he's able to make it all abound for you. So I think that's a kind of whistle stop tour through grace and mercy. We don't want to like, put a strict line between both, because often, like you were saying before, one follows the other and they often come hand in hand. But it's so important as well when we go into the place of prayer to know exactly what to ask for, to know what to thank God for as well. Do you have any last point you want to say?
No, that's pretty much
it. Do you understand? Because we've had a whole like mind-boggling experience.
No, that's pretty much it.
But no, we thank God. And we really hope that you guys have been blessed by this conversation. You can follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, you can subscribe on YouTube. I think there's a Facebook as well, but anyway, we're young. We don't use that. But anyway, God bless you guys. And we will see you next time.